You have 1% of them inside you right now, maybe more. You didn't choose it. You didn't even know it was there until scientists cracked open an ancient bone and read what was hiding in the marrow. For most of human history, you were not the only humans on Earth. There was another species. They had fire. They had language. They buried their dead with flowers. And for tens of thousands of years, they lived beside your ancestors, sometimes as strangers, sometimes as something else entirely. Then they vanished. But the real answer to what happened to them is far stranger than extinction. Their name is Homo neanderthalensis. You probably know them as Neanderthals, and if you're picturing a hunched, grunting caveman, you're picturing a myth. That image came from a single misclassified skeleton in the 1900s, a man who likely had severe arthritis. Scientists mistook his curved spine for the natural posture of the entire species. It stuck for over a century. It was wrong the entire time. Here's what was true. Neanderthals had brains as large as yours, and in some measurements, slightly larger. They made tools with precision. They controlled fire long before it was easy. They cared for their sick and their elderly, individuals who had survived injuries that would have killed them without help from others. Anthropologist Eric Trinkhaus documented skeletons with healed fractures so severe the individual couldn't have hunted or foraged for months. Someone fed them, someone protected them. That's not instinct, that's compassion. So why don't you think of them as human? Why does the word Neanderthal still get used as an insult? Because for a long time, the story of human evolution was written as a straight line. Ape to ape man to caveman to you. A tidy staircase with one species climbing it alone. Neanderthals didn't fit the staircase. So they got written out, cast as the failed experiment, the evolutionary dead end that lost the race to smarter, better humans. The truth is messier and a lot more interesting. Around 300,000 years ago, Neanderthals were already spread across Europe and Western Asia. They had thousands of generations to adapt to Ice Age winters, to hunt woolly mammoths and cave bears, to survive conditions that would kill an unprepared modern human within days. Meanwhile, in Africa, Homo sapiens was still evolving. Your species. When your ancestors finally began migrating out of Africa, somewhere between 70,000 and 60,000 years ago, they didn't walk into an empty world. They walked into a world Neanderthals had already mastered. What happened when the two species met? For decades, nobody could answer that question. There were no written records, no surviving witnesses, just bones, tools, and silence. Then in 2010, a geneticist named Svante Pääbo did something that sounded almost impossible. He sequenced the Neanderthal genome from fragments of ancient DNA pulled out of bones tens of thousands of years old. And when he compared it to modern human DNA, he found something nobody expected. You have Neanderthal DNA in you, right now. If your ancestry traces outside sub-Saharan Africa, somewhere between 1 and 2% of your genome came directly from Neanderthals. Not distant cousins, not evolutionary rivals. Ancestors. The two species didn't just coexist, they had children together. Think about what that actually means. Somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, a Homo sapiens and a Neanderthal looked at each other not as different species, but as potential partners. They formed relationships, families. Pääbo's discovery didn't just rewrite a family tree. It rewrote the entire relationship between two kinds of human, and it wasn't a one-time event. Genetic studies since Pääbo's original work have found evidence of interbreeding happening in multiple waves in multiple regions over thousands of years. Paleoanthropologist Chris Stringer has argued that the boundary between the two species was far blurrier than the old textbooks ever admitted. Not two separate stories running in parallel, one tangled, overlapping story. So if they were this capable, this adaptable, this closely related to you, what actually happened to them? For years, the leading theory was simple. Homo sapiens outcompeted them, better tools, better social networks, better brains for abstract thinking. Neanderthals lost the resource war and starved into extinction. It's a clean story. It's also probably incomplete. Archaeologist João Zilhão has spent decades excavating Neanderthal sites in Europe, and what he's found challenges the primitive loser narrative directly. Pigments used for body decoration, pierced shells that appear to have been worn as jewelry, evidence of symbolic behavior, the kind of behavior once thought to belong exclusively to your species. If Neanderthals were creating meaning, expressing identity, thinking symbolically, they weren't cognitively inferior. They were different. And different isn't the same as worse. What actually drove them toward disappearance was likely a combination of forces, not a single defeat. Climate swings that hit an already small population hard, a population size that may have never been large to begin with. Some estimates suggest tens of thousands of individuals total, spread thin across an entire continent, and slow absorption, not war, not massacre, merging. Here's the part that should unsettle you a little. Neanderthals may not have gone extinct in the way you picture extinction. A species dying out usually means every member is gone. But if their genes are inside you, inside billions of people alive today, did they really disappear? Or did they just stop being separate? You are, in a very real sense, walking evidence of two human species meeting each other and choosing not to stay apart. There's another piece of this puzzle that most people have never even heard of. In 2010, in a Siberian cave, scientists found a tiny finger bone. DNA testing revealed it belonged to neither Homo sapiens nor Neanderthals. It was a third group entirely. Scientists named them Denisovans, after the cave where the bone was found. And it turns out they interbred with your ancestors too, especially in parts of Asia and Oceania, where some populations today carry significant Denisovan ancestry linked to high-altitude survival and immune function. 3 human species overlapping, interacting, interbreeding, at the same time on the same planet. That was the actual state of humanity for tens of thousands of years, not one triumphant species marching forward alone. A crowded, complicated family reunion that most people never learned about in school. Why does this matter to you now? Because the story you were taught, one species climbing a ladder to the top, isn't just wrong. It shaped how people think about difference itself. It made other synonymous with lesser. It turned an entire species of ancient relatives into a punchline. And it did that by ignoring evidence that was quite literally written into human DNA. The real history is more honest than the myth. Humanity was never one clean line. It was a mixture, a blending of populations who looked different, adapted differently, and still found ways to connect across whatever divided them. That's not a footnote to your story. That's the foundation of it. And so the next time you feel entirely certain that you know exactly what makes you human, remember this. Part of the answer isn't fully yours. It's inherited from a species you were taught to think of as extinct, as separate as gone. They're not gone. You have 1% of them inside you right now, maybe more.